Hi everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. I hope you're all well. So I thought I'd create a card today, and I'm going to be using a piece of Pink Frog smooth card, and typical I need a piece of copy of paper. I've actually pulled one out, but there we go. Right, I've got that many things on the go at the moment. So I'm using a piece of Pink Frog smooth card, and it's 4.5 inches by 6.5 inches. And then I've got a black mat 4 3/4 by 6 3/4, both Pink Frog card. I've then got a 5.5 inch by 7.5 inch card blank. So we'll actually work on our card. And what I've got here is this was a spare piece of card, and when I measured it, it's 4.5 inches square. So I thought, why not use it? So I'm going to actually, let's hope I've got a pencil. I'm actually going to draw around the square, the 4.5 inch square. Oh, onto a piece, oh crikey, or try to, onto a piece of copy paper. So I've drawn around, I can't pick it up now, the 4.5 inch square to a fashion. And then I'm just going to cut around that, just so that I've got the aperture. So let's just cut into this. Just use my sharp scissors just to start that off. And we'll just cut out the square. I don't usually use big scissors, but I just thought it'd be easier just with the square rather than my curved scissors. So just cut out the square. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just so I've got the aperture of the same square that I'm going to use. Now, I only happened to think of using this because it was just lying around on the floor from spare pieces that I'd already cut. So I thought, well, why not make use of it? So what I'm going to do is take the actual card piece. This is the 300 GSM piece of card. And this is my 4.5 by 6.5 inch blank that I'm going to work on. And I thought we'd place this square on here like this to give us a different card. Now, sometimes this will move. So what we'll do is we'll get a piece of low tack tape to keep that in place. There we go. And then I can just place this. Do I want it? Yeah, let's have it there. And I spend more time faffing about where I want it. And now I can pick them both up and that one won't move. So perfect. I've now got my brushes, and I've got cracked pistachio and wilted violet distress oxides. I'm going to start with the wilted violet as that is my paler colour. Now, I finally got some brushes because I hadn't got enough colours. Just cheap makeup brushes, which most of them are anyway. But just using brushes because they will just give me a gentler blend. So just picking up that colour, and as you can see, I'm priming the brush. You have to take a little bit of time to get that ink into the sort of the bristles of the brush, just so that you've got that ink on there. If you don't make sure you've got plenty of ink, it drags on the card. Now, what I'm going to do, doesn't matter which way you start, I tend to either start off here or on here. So I'm going to start with the ink on the card and then go to the outside of the card. So you can see I've started here and outwards to the edge of this square. So I'm just blending it nicely just around the edges of the card. And the brush will just give me a little bit of a softer blend around the edges. And at first you think you're not actually doing anything, but it's surprising when you move the card how much ink you've actually got on there. So again, just on the card itself first, the square piece of card. And just blend this colour. And what I tend to do is, if your hand is aching, you're pressing on too hard, and I only know because I do it as well. You don't need to press too hard. You need to make sure you've got plenty of ink on whatever implement you're using, and just a nice gentle circular motion without making your arm ache. And it's surprising from a 4-inch scrap piece of card what you can make. So I'm just trying to get a little bit more depth on this. And you may say, well, if you wanted more depth, why didn't you use cotton dry foam then, Tracy? Well, because I still wanted that lighter shading and blending rather than a deep, rich colour that you get when you use the cotton dry foam, which I adore, but on this occasion, I'm not looking for that. I'm just looking for a beautiful blend. So that's my cracked pistachio. Then I'm going to use a touch of wilted violet. Now I know from using the wilted violet that this colour is super strong, and I don't want it to overpower the cracked pistachio. So I'm starting here and then going just to the edge of the card. So I'm not going as far out as I did with the cracked pistachio. I'm just sort of staying into the very edge. But you can see how much more powerful the purple colour is compared to the cracked pistachio. And that's what you have to be aware sometimes when using products. Sometimes some colours are a little bit more powerful, but once you've used them quite a bit, you get used to that. But you can see the difference in colour on the square compared to the cracked pistachio. And it's all about those layers. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to go back to the cracked pistachio and just add a little bit more of the cracked pistachio. Just to give me a little bit more depth. And then we can just remove our simple little piece of card that we just picked up. There we go. Just beautiful. I mean, you could even use that as well afterwards. So I've now got my sort of aperture, and it's going to give me a different feel to a card. So what I've got now is I've got the same square, not that you can see, literally cut from a piece of copier paper, so that that is then masked off. I'm then going to take, now I can say I did pull it out. I'm going to take my Clematis TE5. I just adore this stamp. And what we're going to do is take the big floral. Let's take our acrylic block. And you can have this floral any which way that you want. It's entirely up to you. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to ink this up with the wilted violet Distress Oxide ink. Now, you shouldn't do what I'm doing and ink your image over your piece of card. I'm just doing that so that you could just see that I was inking it with the wilted violet. So then I've put it on my desk, and now I'm going to decide which way I want the, and I'm not going to be able to decide because that's just me all over. So we'll place one there. Now I've used that copier paper because here where the line is, I don't want there to be a thick ridge of 300 GSM card, because then it will cause like a white line, and we don't want that. We want it to go right to the edge. And because we're using the oxide ink, that's a pigment dye fusion, and because of that pigment element, it allows us to stamp with the oxides as well. So I'm going to ink again. Now I have got some, I've got plenty of masks which I keep in my little wallet here. Always handy to have some masks cut out. And I spend more time faffing with my mask than anything else, mainly because I'm not using a masking sheet. If you've got a masking sheet, it sticks on there. I'm just using copier paper, old-fashioned stamper and all. I still use my copier paper. I should get some masking sheets because that will give you edge-to-edge adhesion and it won't move. But hey-ho, I haven't. Let's have that one going there. It takes me ages to decide where to put it, and I put that mask on just to mask that little area there, just in case I went straight over it. And you can see I still don't rush that. Right, so let's just move this out of the way. Let's move the mask. We'll actually place that mask back in place, just so that I don't lose them. And now I've got my beautiful floral on there. So I've just lifted that out just to see what I'd got. So I'm going to now ink the stamp again, because I just want a third one. But sometimes I don't stamp that third one until I really make sure that's what I want. And make sure that you give your stamp a really good inking. Now I just make sure that that's it. Just trying to, that's it. So am I going to touch? No, I don't think I'm going to touch that. We'll add that there. It does take me a little bit of time to decide where I want to place that down. That's me all over. Because I've got no ridge on there, it means I don't end up, I can't pick the copier paper up, I don't end up with a white line. The only important thing you need to remember is when you're using oxide ink on your stamps, you need to give that stamp a clean, mainly because you don't want that oxide layer of ink to remain on your stamp. You won't do it any harm. It's just that when you come to use your VersaFine Clair, your VersaFine Clair won't be crisp, clean images and black. It'll have like a cloudiness to it. So you just need to make sure that you wipe that. What I'm going to do then is just grab a little piece of kitchen roll. So let's grab a piece of kitchen roll, and I've chucked my pencils out the way. And I have got some Prisma colour pencils. You can use whatever you want, preferably not something that is water reactive. You can do, but not for this project, I'm not. So I've got a dark, a medium and a light. I don't do any swatches, I'm terrible. So I have got PC 108, which is Parma Violet, PC 956, which is Lilac, and PC 934, which is Lavender. And these are my Prismacolor pencils. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my dark, and I'm leaving my fingers high up on the pencil because for me personally, that stops me from pressing too hard on the card too quickly. Because if I press too quickly, I'll break down the fibres of that card too quickly. It'll become shiny, which is what we don't want. It'll become shiny, and then we can't add any other layers of colour. And we want to add the layers of colour to our design. So I'm just going to add the light shading initially. So just going in a circular motion just to add that colour. And you can see it's not something that I take a great deal of time on. I just sort of lightly add that layer. And with keeping those fingers quite high up on the pencil barrel, it means that I don't press too hard too quickly. And by using the copier paper, it means that I'm not smudging my ink, because that is an oxide ink that is reactive to moisture. So that means if you've got any sweaty paw prints, your little hands are a bit sweaty, then you will move that ink because it's reactive to any moisture. So I'm just keeping a piece of kitchen roll just handy, just so that I can lean on that. Okay, so they've all got the darkest layer on, which it isn't dark because I'm adding the layers lightly. I'm then going to go to the second colour, which is the Lilac, PC 956. And initially, you're not really going to see much of a difference. You're not going to see any depth or anything, because we have to build those layers up. And we can't do that in the first layer. So let's just add light layers initially. And there's not much of the floral to colour. It's a nice easy floral to colour. But I want to show you the difference when you just lightly add the shading, the colour, and how it changes. Right, can you see there's no differentiation in shading or depth or anything. So we'll then go to our lightest colour, which is Lavender, PC 934. I would recommend that you sharpen your pencils. I've got a lovely sharpener from my friend Catherine. And I'm so grateful to Catherine to telling me about the sharpener, because it really makes a difference. So I'm going to use that light colour, which is Lavender. And again, you're probably looking at the camera and thinking, well, Tracy, I can't see any difference in any of the colours. Don't forget, we're building those colours up lightly. You're not going to see anything initially. You're really not going to see much in the camera. But this is how lightly it needs to be done initially. And as you shade, you go back to the previous layer of colour. And you will start to notice a difference when we add another layer of that colour. Right, so what I'm going to do now is go back to the darkest colour, which was our first colour, which was the Parma Violet, PC1008. And then this time, I'm going to press on a little bit harder. Still in that circular motion, but just pressing a little bit harder. And we'll be able to add our touches of white as well. So just adding a darker layer of colour now. So you just press a little bit harder, but you're not scratching your page like we did when we were children. I used to hold my pencils so firmly. I don't know why I did that. But just adding another layer of that colour. There we go. So you're just layering your colour a little bit more, just to give a little bit more depth of colour. And you will be adding white areas as well. So then I'm going to go to my second colour, which is the Lilac, PC956. And again, I'm just going to press a little bit harder, but going down into the darker colour. So going down into that darker colour. And Prismacolor pencils are really good. So smooth. You can see them blending out before your very eyes. So I'm just using that circular motion. Try not to lose myself too much and not forget that, you know, I'm actually speaking to you, because that's quite possible. Because I'm good like that. I don't think I've done that darker one there. I knew I hadn't. And then use the second colour. So then go to our next one. So you've sort of added 2 layers of colour. But not pressing on too hard. And going back into the first layer of colour you've added. And then going to add the lighter colour, which is Lavender, PC934. And bring this in to the colour before, so that you blend out those harsh lines. So bring it into that second colour, just so that you blend out any of those harsh lines. Don't worry about the lines here. just blend your colours out, making sure that you go into the previous colour, because that's how you'll get your blend, by going into that previous colour and getting rid of those harsh lines. You can start to see that you get a little bit more depth now. Obviously we need to add some white and some definition. Okay, so what I'm going to do then is go back to the darkest colour, and now I'm going to press harder. Just to give a little bit more definition and just to smooth out the colouring a little bit more. Now as you press a little bit harder, you will get a little bit of a bloom, a little bit of that wax coming onto the surface. Just pressing a little bit harder now. On some of the areas I hardly have to do anything because there's not much floral to colour. So just pressing that a little bit harder now, just so I can smooth out those areas. And it is very therapeutic, I have to say. Is there anywhere I've missed now? So then I'll go back to my second colour and now go into the darker colour, just so that I blend those lines out. Now you can do this about 4 times, but I think this will be enough for this. Just to blend out your harsh lines. And they are lovely to colour with because it just happens before your eyes. So just blending out the first colour, so sort of going back to that dark colour and just blending out. So still using a circular motion just to blend the dark colour so that we haven't got any of those harsh lines. Some of the petals only need a little touch. So then we'll go back finally to our palest colour and just add our paler colour. Again, pressing on a little bit firmer just to blend out the colour before. And obviously in some areas you only need to touch because there's not much of the floral visible, but you can actually see in front of your eyes the actual pencils blending just wonderful. Okay, let's just, there we go. So what I'm going to do then is grab, she says confidently, I want my white pencil. So if I lift these up, they've now got a little bit more depth and dimension. And what I'm going to do is just go to the tips of the floral and just use my white brush. No, this is not a brush, this is a pencil brush. Let me just sharpen that. I obviously don't know the difference between a brush and this that's called a pencil. Poor thing. So I'm just going to add a little bit of the white, just a few sort of highlights. I'm going to go over with the gel pen as well. But it is just worth it. In real life you can see a little bit of a white touch. Just to give. Now I'm going to use my gel pen. And I have to check it every single time just to make sure it's working. So I'm just going to add a little bit of the white gel pen just to the clematis, I always think it's better if you give the actual wax a little bit of time. I'm just going to add a few dots of white just to the petals, just to lift them a little bit. Just to lift that, just so you can see. Don't they just look lovely? Just really nice. Let's add a little few dots. Just to lift it a little bit. And then I'm just going to take my bottle and spritz with water a little bit. Maybe more than a little bit, just so that things start moving. And of course, when I've spritzed all over my acrylic block and everywhere, like you do. But you can see that you're just adding some of the colour. Just let that do its thing. Just let it bleed a little bit. You've put the wax pencil on, so that'll keep the definition. But just let it do its thing. Don't do anything for a while. Just give it a couple of seconds. And then we can just blot our card just a little bit. Now you can use your heat tool if you wish. I don't want to use the heat tool. There we go. So what we've got is we've sort of no, we're not doing anything. We've sort of diffused the background a little bit. There we go. I want to stamp on here now with my grey. So I'm going to use my grey ink, my VersaFine Clair Morning Mist. I've got the Morning Mist in my shop. Just gives it a little bit more of a background effect. Let's move this out of the way. Now you can dry yours with the heat tool if you wish. I'm just making sure that I'm using Morning Mist. And then I'm going to add the grey. Just so. What the grey then does, because the grey is slightly darker than the purple Clematis, it pushes that purple Clematis into the background. And now I'm using that Clematis stamp with grey ink just as a background stamp. I know it's a sentiment, but it can also be used as a background stamp as well. And because it's a little bit darker than the image that we've just coloured, it pushes that into the background. Just creating the background. And it's nice that you use all your stamps. You don't have to use the sentiment stamps just for sentiments. They can also be a part of the background. There we go. So I'm letting this dry on its own because it'll flatten out itself. And that Clematis, the wording, pushes that other Clematis to the background. So what I'm going to do then is take our floral again. We may as well, another piece of card. We'll grab another piece of our card. We'll use our black ink this time. And now we've gone to the black ink, we wouldn't have wanted that oxide ink to be on the stamp. And let's just add there we go. Lovely. So we can then just cut our Clematis out. Just leaving a narrow white border. I don't do it on every card, so it's how the card speaks to me. They speak to me, you know, they actually do speak to me. So I just cut out and I leave a narrow border depending on the project that I'm creating. And I just love the little white border. And I do get a lot of questions about what scissors do I use. These are Pergamano scissors. I'm sure nail scissors would suffice as well. These are curved. They help me when I'm cutting out fine areas with that curve in them. And I tend to move the card rather than my scissors. It makes it a little bit easier. And if I move the card as well, I can just, most of the time, keep my fingers away from the ink. Because if you haven't blotted that ink with a piece of copy paper, because it's got a good open time and stays wetter longer, you can smudge that ink. So you just need to be aware of that. But if you just follow simple techniques and procedures, you will end up with good results. There we go. And you can see, no you can't because I can't even pick that up. You can see my card is still curling. You can actually spritz the back of your card and that will just help to flatten it out as well. But it will eventually flatten out. You don't need to worry about it. It will flatten out. But what I like is, can you see this bit here where we've sort of spritzed it with water? It's just lovely. And I love how it's diffused. Just beautiful. Now, if you want to, you can leave that in the black, which I quite like. So if I colour it in the same colours, it's not going to pop against that background, which is what I want. So let's just, I mean, really, I should dry this. But the one thing that we do need to do is, let me just lift this. Can you see? There you go, there, it's just shining. That means that you've stamped it onto a surface that's no longer porous, because I've got that oxide ink on there and I've also got that waxy layer from the pencils. So just blot your VersaFine Clair just so that you get rid of the touches of black that are on there. There we go. It's just, and then my lovely friend Lucy, I bought myself some cottons a while back and I loved them because of the tin, and then Lucy got me the sort of pastel colours, which is perfect for this one because I can take some of that lilac-y cotton, just take some of that and then just spread it out a little bit because that sort of diffuses my background. Which we love. And then I'm going to use my pin flare. So now you can see that the florals are in the background, but so is the grey, but it's like the florals are pushed right back because of that grey. Then I'm going to add one blob and two blobs of pin flare. You can just add card if you wish. Now, am I going to add, do you like how I don't know which way I want to add my own floral? I think I'm going to add it that way, just so it's facing different ways. There we go. And it just makes your floral look completely different. Let me just push that up, just make sure that I don't get any air gaps. And then I just want to stamp the Clematis wording, but this time in the black. Because the black now comes into the foreground. So we'll just stamp our wording. And if, like me, you spend your time touching those mucky stamps, just make sure your fingers are clean. And I need to clean my scissors, they're so gunked up. I really do need to give them a bit of a clean. I'm then going to use my Posca pen to add the faux black matte. I used to do this with Krylon pens. Brings back memories. That's a blast from the past, Krylon pens. There we go. And then we'll just wipe up our black mess. You can do that with your black Nocturne ink pad, However, what you'll find is when you add it to the edges, again, because it's an ink pad with a good open time, it'll stay wet for longer. Therefore, you just make sure you don't get in a mess with it. So I'm then going to add this Clematis here. Definitely having no luck with this one glue. That's it. There we go. And we'll just add this here. And that cotton really gives it some sort of texture to the background. So I'm just going to add a little bit more white just to the florals. Just to give it a little bit more definition. Then we'll add our splatters of white. Because I love a good splatter. Now, I hear a lot of people say that the Posca pen, if you use it on the oxide, obviously because it's moist, obviously it reacts with the oxides and picks up that colour, so therefore doesn't stay white. I like that where it sort of diffuses that, and if I want it to stay pure white, I can use my bleed proof white by Dr. P.H. Martins or my Liquitex acrylic titanium white. So there are other ways that you can add that white if you wish and you don't want it to react with the oxides. It also helps if the oxide is dry and you've dried it, and it will just help a little bit as well. Just loved that fact that it just a lovely, a simple background, and it's wonderful. So let's just make sure that now the reason that's lifted up is I've got moisture on the card and I've got cotton behind, so I need to make sure that grabs hold. Now once we add this to a black mat, that's when it begins to sing, because that black echoes the black of the focal image. Now I'm asking for a lot here, because normally I would leave this card now just to dry just before adding it to the black mat. I would make sure it was completely dry and therefore it wasn't bending. But I need to show you the card finished, so I'm going to push my luck anyway. And what I need to do, because I'm pushing my luck a little bit, I need to make sure that I just press in the middle areas as well, just to make sure that does stick. But the black really, really helps to make that. And then if I add that, let me just bend your black card to make sure it makes good contact. And then if I add that to a 5.5 by 7.5 inch card blank, and just that matting and layering gives it a professional finish. There we go. Let me just lift that up for you, and it just finishes it off beautifully. I just love the way you've got the colours echoed here. Just makes it look really lovely. But it's a nice simple technique just for a background, and it just works really well. I'm really pleased with that. And that's just from a scrap, a 4.5 by 4.5 piece of card, and it just inspires another idea. So I hope you've enjoyed that. Love to all, and I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.